All right, team, welcome back to episode 2 of What You Should and Should Not Do, part 5. We're on part 5 if you could believe it. But I'm going to piggyback off that last video. So in January, when I did the MLK Day of Service event, I was accused of yelling, screaming, cussing at people in front of kids and community members. Now, I'm transitioning into what you should do and what you should not do if you're the chief legal counsel, because again, just like if you're the head of HR, if you're an attorney for a professional basketball team, you should be mitigating risks and damages and not compounding them and not lying about things. And the best way to prevent yourself from lying about things is to do your due diligence. So I'm just going to carry right on. In February, which was Black History Month, had to do another event. And then I was accused of not having food and drinks and all that kind of stuff ready, which in my job description, it's not my job to schedule drinks and food and all those things. And then again, of course, I was accused of yelling, cussing, and screaming at people when I wasn't even at that event. That's wild. And then we go into March where we had our Women's History Month event. And again, that was a lot of people's favorite event. We had a lot of candid conversations and people participated. And I talked a little bit about my work history and why I was inspired to move into DE&I. And a lot of people afterwards came up to me and was like, oh my God, that was so great. Like, we really need to do more of that. And we need to have more of those types of conversations here because things here are just so like, yikes. And I completely agreed. And even my boss, originally, she was like, great event. That was awesome. But then here we go. The jealous Jans of the world came through. Oh, Andrea was yelling and cussing and screaming at people, behaving aggressively. I was always yelling and cussing and screaming at people. They could never tell who I was yelling and cussing at or what I was cussing, like what I was saying. It was just always like, oh, she was behaving aggressively and she was yelling and cussing and screaming at people. Like, nah. Because Black women can't be professional in the workplace, according to those jealous Jans and those Karens. But listen, Linda, that's not always the truth. And if you are going to be an attorney who, along with your head of HR, is going to submit these things into real life litigation, you should have documented proof. What you shouldn't do is just list out the lies and say that you did thorough investigations and found that my conduct was blah, blah, blah. Where's the investigation? Where are the emails? Because if I'm yelling, cussing, and screaming in front of large groups of people like that, you should have some documentation that you spoke to me about those things, right? Why don't you have those things? And then we get to April, and we did Earth Month, and we did a sustainability event, me along with Monet. Rest in peace, Monet. We love you. And it was another good event. People got to do all kinds of fun things, and it was around the arena. And then here comes the jealous Jans again. Always yelling, cussing, and screaming at people. I was always yelling, cussing, and screaming at people. But again, don't know who I was yelling at, don't know who I was cussing at. And there was never any mention of specific details because they were just always lies that these people would make up. And then Pride Month was another event where it was a good event. It was poorly attended because nobody ever helped. And they kept going back and forth about what date are we going to do it? And when I say they, I mean the people that were put in charge of the DE&I stuff over me, who were supposed to be running the Pride group. And because they didn't want to do anything with me because I was just so hard to work with, I had to lead the Pride group, even though I was the head of DE&I, which I should not have been doing. But we'll talk about that more later. So again, it was another, like, the food was good. It was a small event, but people really enjoyed the food and the vendors all of the vendors that came, they were in the Pride community themselves. And we just had discussions. And so Brick Road Coffee, the owners of that place came, and I'm not going to say the other name because I'm going to talk about them more later also, but they made delicious food. It was a good conversation and people liked that one. And again, got all kinds of compliments. And then the jealous Jans of the world, again, she was yelling, cussing, and screaming at people, being aggressive. So why can't you guys produce any documentation to back that up? Do better.